Seed oil detoxification in 3 steps. It's going to be a total game changer for you. And my promise to you is that this is going to be the most pivotal presentation that you've ever been exposed to, at least in insofar as its ability to get you back on track. Let's just take you to the promised land, put the health back in humanity, fix our physiology, not just today or tomorrow, but for decades down the line. 2015, by the way, is the year that I became apprised of the unbelievably insidious, bioaccumulative, toxic, easily prone to oxidation nature of vegetable oils, and the fact that these are seemingly paradoxically perpetuating the very thing that, according to the American Heart Association, they are purported to actually protect us from, which is heart disease. And the fact that that's frankly just scratching the surface of an unbelievably colossal iceberg, the depths and breadths of which we're going to be exploring together. And if you're new to my channel, you've never seen my face before, my name is Jason, and I'm here to hand you the map to become the man. The truth is that I spent the first 20 years of my life inside my head. I was shy, socially awkward, and discontented, unable to express myself authentically. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be authentic, masculine, grounded, and true to yourself. And these pictures here are frankly just disseminating my health journey. I used to be on nebulized solutions because I had a set of lungs that wheezed in a way not dissimilar to the residents of nursing homes, who for about 5 years in my mid to late 20s, I consulted on as a consultant pharmacist in a number of different nursing homes in the state of Maine. And I realized that I was digging in the wrong direction. The way that we put the health back in humanity is not by crossing the T's and dotting the I's and vetting for drug-drug interactions. That was the wrong paradigm. The proper paradigm was to put food first. It was to pay the farmer and not the pharmacy. These residents, by the way, who were cognitively impaired with drool dribbling down their lips and chin, were being fed these highly prone to oxidation seed oils. That was really part and parcel to the food preparation process, which unfortunately I was witness to. So it has been a journey, and this is not to brag, this is just to show the evolution of my masculinity and the fact that over time I've become more sexually polarized with increasingly feminine women, and that's just something that was important to me. I wanted to max out as a man. I wanted to actually feel confident and not be alpha in a really brash 1.0 way, but rather intellectually grounded and not intimidated by men in my life. And I really think if you're serious about that, you'll love a lot of the content on my channel, and you should definitely consider subscribing. So in terms of vegetable oil consumption, let's just paint with broad strokes and look at the 10,000 foot overview, which is aptly characterized in a 2015 publication by Stefan Guillenet, co-authored by Susan Carlson, titled Increase in Adipose Tissue Linoleic Acid of US Adults in the Last Century. I've had the pleasure of working directly with Susan Carlson, and at the end of this presentation, I'll be sharing with you some blood test results that she had independently analyzed in her laboratory at the end of last year, just based on a blood sample that I had sent to her. And the reason I want to show you that, by the way, is because I'm not just an armchair quarterback. I'm not just stroking my philosophical beard. This presentation is something I live, I breathe, and I sleep. I will talk to random strangers about this in grocery stores. I will spend hours disseminating these ideas to my loved ones, my friends, my family. I'm very serious about this process, and this isn't something that I'm analyzing from afar. It is deeply embedded in the air that I breathe. I avoid these oils like the plague. This graph here shows from 1961 to 2008, the increased linoleic acid in adipose tissue as evidenced by adipose tissue biopsies of linoleic acid, which can be compared with chimpanzees who have stayed flatlined at 8%, a single-digit percentage that human beings used to boast, but unfortunately now, due to the increased consumption of these vegetable oils on the order of 5 tablespoons per day, which marks an infinite increase, because you cannot divide by 0 in these refined, bleached, and deodorized oils. 80 grams, 5 tablespoons per day, when we used to have 0 grams of these added oils. And so the excess linoleic acid that presents in these oils does so as a certain percentage. And I've included this table here just to better familiarize you with those particular statistics. But we can see leading the race, safflower oil with 78% linoleic acid. But I did also want to give you the 10,000 foot elevation view, which is to contrast these industrial oils, which require a lot of heat, hexanes, and pressure to extract, compared with cold pressed oils. So generally speaking, these industrial oils are going to have much more linoleic acid than a cold pressed oil such as coconut oil or palm oil. And this is precisely the problem, is that these industrial seed oils contain more linoleic acid than would have ever been ancestrally feasible to actually ingest. And credit goes to Kate Shanahan, author of Deep Nutrition, for having dubbed the 8 most ubiquitous of these oils as the hateful 8. And that's corn, canola, cottonseed, soybean, sunflower, safflower, rice bran, and grapeseed. And this graphic here really aptly characterizes the dangers that the aforementioned impose, not least the known carcinogens therein, namely 4-hydroxynonenal, malondialdehyde, and acrolein. And that's just scratching the surface of the problems that these impose, because they're already so prone to oxidation that when you consume them, they're going to bioaccumulate and render every single cell in your body more prone to oxidation. And that's to say nothing of the heat, pressure, hexane, bleaching, and deodorizing that is necessitated to actually extract these oils and have them wind up on your dinner plate. A lot of people are really quick to point out the fact that correlation does not imply causation. And even though that's true, for something to be causative, it has to be correlative. And I would submit that a lot of the absurd correlative examples that people offer to emphasize the fact that you cannot by default posit two correlative variables to be causative in any way, which is true. Those correlations they often offer are on the order of months to years. But when we have a century-long correlation that is conserved not just in America, but now we're seeing greater rates of heart disease in Japan and myriad other countries who introduce and increase their consumption of these oils, we have to realize that our suspicion should grow in tandem with the duration of that correlation. And the only reason that you see a flatlining of the heart disease deaths in, say, the 80s moving forward is medical interventions coming to fruition, coronary artery bypass grafts, not the least of which. But needless to say, that it's simply the fact that the deaths have flatlined, but the number of people contending with the consequences of heart disease is still astronomically high. And it's the fact that we are keeping people alive for longer. We are emphasizing and optimizing for lifespan within the Western medical paradigm, but that's at the detriment of health span. And that's my focus, is to keep you healthy, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed about life. And I just wanted to include a couple of graphics here on behalf of James DeNicolantonio. This is a fellow doctor of pharmacy, really cool guy who I've crossed paths with online. And he had a really great tweet a few years back. Once consumed, omega-6 has a half-life of approximately 680 days. Omega-6 fats get incorporated into tissues, including the heart and brain, and can stay there for years. Who wants a highly oxidizable oil saturating their organs for years? Stop consuming omega-6 seed oils. I would just like to echo his message, and I would like to redirect you and anyone who's interested to a 2018 publication of his that he co-authored with James O'Keefe, the PMID of which is 303-64556, titled Omega-6 Vegetable Oils as a Driver of Coronary Heart Disease, the Oxidized Linoleic Acid Hypothesis. If you were to Google that, click on the page, scroll down to box 1, you will see 29 lines of evidence implicating these highly prone to oxidation seed oils as the primary driver of heart disease. And I just briefly wanted to expound upon box 2 to very briefly explicate the fact that the primary arguments for why linoleic acid reduces the risk of CHD, coronary heart disease, is that it reduces total cholesterol and LDL. which by the way is going to tank your testosterone. In a world of increasing endocrine disrupting chemicals, I would submit that seed oils are actually taking the cake. These are the most disruptive to your endocrine system. And if you're even remotely serious about maximizing your testosterone levels as a man, these oils have absolutely no place in your diet. And the fact that this is the argument for why they reduce coronary heart disease, it really pales in comparison, at least in my estimation, to the fact that while they do in fact reduce LDL cholesterol because they're hepatotoxic, they're toxic to your liver, they increase the susceptibility of the remaining LDL that you do have in circulation to oxidation. And unless a LDL particle or any other lipoprotein is oxidized, it cannot be atherogenic because it's not injurious to the endothelium. It's not recognized as foreign until it gets oxidized. Heart disease is actually caused by the immune system response that gets mounted in response to these perceived as foreign body oxidized lipoproteins. And over time, that's what results in net plaque deposition if you don't have an augmented antioxidant status, which is why I recommend vitamin C and E supplementation and a shot of pomegranate juice every single day. So step number 1, let's get serious now. Eat less PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids. And the greatest source of these that have proliferated in the modern food supply chain are these vegetable oils that we've been discussing. We can see Cheerios, Beyond Sausage, Lay's, Nature Valley Crunchy snack bars. All of these are riddled with these vegetable oils, and what in their totality give rise to the aforementioned 5 tablespoons, 80 grams that the average American consumes every single day. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my browser and I'm going to go to chronometer.com. This would be a really great action step for you. If you haven't created an account on this platform, what it's going to allow you to do is really use it as a scratch pad, if you will, for your day-to-day dietary intake. And it's going to do a really great analysis of such, not just at the level of macronutrients, right? Not just at the surface level, but rather is going to excavate a little bit deeper and delve into the nature of your micronutrients. But ostensibly, more importantly, at least for the topic today, your lipid consumption. So what I'd like you to do is enter your dietary intake. You can see mine from yesterday here. I've got some basmati rice, whole milk, beef, eggs, pomegranate juice. I supplement with beef gelatin powder. I've got a little bit of beef liver and some red mint real salt. If I were to scroll down and see the number of grams of fat that I'm consuming per day, 83.3, I want to make sure that I'm not getting more than 10% of that from PUFA. So no more than 8.33. You can see I'm getting about 6.6. So that is the litmus test that I would encourage you to perform for yourself. And the bottom line here is you want 9 times more saturated and monounsaturated fat than you do polyunsaturated fat. And this is just showing how serious I take this. This was out at Longhorns one night, and I was explicating to the waiter that I am allergic to these oils. So it's not just in processed packaged foods, but if you're eating out at restaurants, you can pretty much guaranteed rest assured that they are cooking in canola oil, soybean oil, vegetable oil. And that's just this non-specific colloquial term for any combination of the aforementioned. I take this incredibly seriously, and this presentation is my best effort for you to follow suit. So step number 2 is that we need to embrace the type of fat that we've been told is going to clog our arteries, and that's saturated fat, which predominates in fatty red meat, full fat dairy, and coconut oil. These fats are fully saturated, and that means there are no double bonds between the carbon atoms that constitute the parent chain. And since you become what you eat, the ratios of saturated to mono and polyunsaturated fat in time will be reflected by the phospholipid bilayers of every cell in your body, which you don't want to be prone to oxidation, if you don't want to be experiencing excess inflammation, an overclocked immune system, and all of the consequences inherent to that. I'm going to really solidify right now just how bullish I am about the importance of saturated fat and us seeing that as it merely having been the scapegoat for the doings of these oils, and the fact that saturated fat is in fact the most cardioprotective fat by telling you that I literally eat a leaner cut of beef. A lot of people will ask me this, why 90%? Why 93% ground beef? And I do that so that I can get more saturated fat from full fat dairy. I'm probably the only person you've ever heard who literally will go that far out on a limb for saturated fat. And the reason I do that is because red meat is actually a really good source of monounsaturated fat, which is divinely healthy as well. It has a 1-to-1 ratio of saturated to monounsaturated fat. But for reasons of endocrinological optimization, I actually prefer getting slightly more saturated than monounsaturated fat. And if you are somebody who does not effectively digest dairy, there's absolutely no problems opting for fattier cuts of red meat to make sure you're getting at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight in grams of fat per day. So step number 3 is just a potential supercharger of steps 1 and 2, and really only applies if you have excess adiposity. If you are beyond, say, 15% body fat, which you can see in these graphical depictions here. 8 to 16% is a really good range for men. I would not recommend going any far north of 16, and at least not sustainably south of 8%. Really, all you need is steps 1, 2, and time. But if you do have a buffer, you do have a bit of body fat to lose, going into a hypocaloric state where you sustain a caloric deficit for a prolonged period of time will absolutely expedite this process. I just wanted to end off here by bolding, italicizing, and underscoring the fact that this is not a spectator sport to me. This is my life. I live, I breathe, and I sleep this. I'm not part of a circle jerk. I'm not mentally masturbating. I'm not engaging in mental gymnastics. This is something that I believe will truly revolutionize the future of human health. And I believe we need to take this seriously. And that's why I've gotten a number of different blood tests here for you, just to exemplify the results that I've rendered. Because a lot of people would say that when you consume a lot of saturated fat, because of the solidity of it structurally, biochemically, that is going to render insulin resistant. So what I'd like to do is just briefly expound upon the results of an oral glucose tolerance test that I had done. I can remember I was at the Quest Labs diagnostics facility. The lady handed me a drink containing 75 grams of pure sugar, and I downed it within 3 seconds. And 1 hour later, my glucose was 68 milligrams per deciliter. At baseline, you can see it was 76. And 2 hours later, it actually got flagged for being too low because it was 59 milligrams per deciliter. I had no signs of hypoglycemia. I felt perfectly fine, perfectly normal. And this is just illustrating that I am very insulin sensitive, not least evidenced by the fact that they also measured my insulin levels at those times, at times 0, 1 hour, and 2 hour post consumption of the 75 gram dextrose solution. You can see my baseline insulin 5.3, 1 hour post 59, 2 hours post 7.3. And these are very indicative of high insulin sensitivity and great metabolic flexibility, as is my fasted C peptide, which you see here being 0.88. So I just wanted to wrap here with a couple of very important blood tests that I've had performed. OX-LDL, oxidized LDL, not the least of which, and you can see that I have a very low OX-LDL because I have a very low linoleic acid intake and a high saturated and monounsaturated fat intake that renders my circulating LDL much less prone to oxidation. But I also wanted to direct your attention to this fatty acid test that I had performed, wherein my linoleic acid level actually got flagged for being too low because it was below the 18.6 to 29.5 reference range. Mine here is a percentage by weight, and the phospholipid bilayer of my circulating red blood cells was 15.4. And that's really just my best effort to express to you that I do take this seriously, that I do actually practice what I preach, and I believe in this process wholeheartedly. And what I'd like to leave you with is the question, why not now? Can we get serious now? Can we just subtract these seed oils and become as healthy as possible? I've laid out the map for you today, increasing more saturated fat, eating less polyunsaturated fat, losing body fat if you have the ability to do so. Let's just land the plane. And if you want more information about how you can do that, I recommend going to alphaactualization.com. I'm going to enter that into my web browser right now. I would submit that this is nothing short of a cheat code that you can just enter into life and equip yourself with a map that is going to take you to the promised land and help you better navigate the 21st century as a man. I have my former mentor who, by the way, in 2015 clued me in to this information about seed oils, which he determined independently at the age of 12, over 24 years ago. And I've had him author a number of different integral articles that are really going to fast track your self-actualization journey. You can see among them, only take supplements you actually need, resistance training guidelines for health and aesthetics. We've got a sleep optimization article, another one on nutrition, water distillation, testosterone maxing. This is truly your unfair advantage and a gift from me to you that I really hope you internalize. That's it for today, my friend. Drop a comment down below, like and subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, find your freedom. Peace.